Shalom. Welcome to Shar Stories. I call the story the Saga of Sage, Sage being a cat. All right. In the fall of 1995, Floyd and I, that was before we had children, we purchased a home on 5 acres in Ypsilanti, Michigan. The house needed cosmetic work, and so there was repairs to the siding, replacing the siding, repairs to the porch that was upstairs. And early one morning, one of the construction workers found two cats on the road and brought them to me. And I immediately took them in and gave them food and water. And they were the cutest, long gray hair and just balls of fur. Okay. I named the male Sage and I named the female Cinnamon. Okay. And when I was growing up, we had dogs in the house. We didn't have any cats. But as an adult, I had cats and liked cats. Now, Floyd came from a family, no pets, no animals, nothing. Okay. So this was completely foreign to Floyd to live with an animal. As a matter of fact, he had told me once when I had some guinea pigs and they were in cages and I had them in the living room when we still lived in Detroit. He said, Sharon, he said, my mama's eating guinea pigs in here. She'll never eat your food. Okay, so that's where he was coming from. Right? So I hadn't had cats or kittens in a long time, and I made a mistake. I made a little bed for them out on the porch, and in the morning, they were gone. The contractor felt sorry for me, so he went out looking for them. And I wondered, was he on time? Was I paying for him? Me out looking for a cat. So anyway, he found Sage, but he didn't find Cinnamon. And we kept her in the house, and we became very attached to her. He would lay in my lap. He would sleep on pillows I placed on the second floor landing. And when we ate, he would try to sit in an empty chair with only his head overlooking the table. Okay. And we were constantly shooing him away while we're eating because we did have definite rules about animals and people. Okay. No cats in the bed, no cats on the table, no cats on the furniture, the countertops, or eating out of people dishes. Okay. Now, some of my friends let their cats eat out of the same dishes and put them all in the dishwasher. They let the cat sleep with them, and their clothes was full of cat hair all the time. Okay, but we didn't play that, okay? But now, even Floyd was starting to like Sage. Floyd would rub him, and he would let him lay in his lap. And Sage was the only cat that I knew that he would come when you called his name, even if you didn't have food for him. He would come. He was just a great cat, okay? So after about 6 months after Sage came to live with us, I had an out of town business trip, and I called home one evening just as Floyd was setting his plate. He had ribs. This was before Torah, and he had some barbecue ribs and French fries and coleslaw sat on the table to eat. And they were the last ribs that we had in the house. And Sage had jumped on the table across from him and had his head like this, sitting very mannerly. Okay, and he wasn't meowing nothing. He just looking. Okay. Now Floyd's fatal mistake. Floyd got up from the table, turned his back, and went to the refrigerator to get a soda or something. When Floyd turned his back, Sage was jumped on the table, grabbed the ribs, and skedaddled under the table. Floyd heard the commotion and turned around just quick enough to see his ribs going over the table with Sage. And I'm on the phone, okay, and I'm listening to all this. Floyd yelled, he was stomping his feet, and I think he was crying like a baby. Everyone's so mad, you know. His last ribs, bested by a cat. The cat he fed, the cat who was supposed to keep him company while I was gone, the cat he loved and let him have a place in his heart. And plus, that cat ate my ribs. All right, now moving on. Okay, so we sold that house because um, there was 80 acres across the road from us, and it was sold to a developer, and we wanted to really still be in the country. But when we put our house on the market, it sold within 2 weeks, so we had to move to an apartment. And we moved into an apartment in Ann Arbor, and we lived on the first floor. And Sage was with us, and the patio looked out onto the pool in a wooded area. And Sage would go out in the yard and walk around, but he would always come back to the porch. But because I was having cabin fever in that apartment, I began to put that on to Sage and thinking Sage was feeling hemmed up. So let me take him out for an outing. Okay. Now, Floyd just said, Sharon, I think you're making a mistake. Okay. And he thought that Sage would wander off, but I assured him Sage would never do that. Didn't he always come back at night into the apartment? So Floyd and I put Sage in the Jeep and went nearly a mile to Black Pond Wood Park. And Sage loved it. He loved it so much he walked off and didn't return. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, I felt foolish. Floyd is he only a couple times in life he's ever said, I told you so, but he didn't have to say that for me to know that he had told me so. Okay. So the first week I was hopeful I would find him. I would go back out to the park and I would call his name and I would look around. I put up some signs. Second week, third week, no sage. Fourth week, no sage. Fifth week, no sage. And finally, on the sixth week, Sage showed up on our patio. Okay. He had gained weight. He looked fluffed out and groomed. He was back. Okay. So he must have been living with a caring family who was now wondering where their beloved cat had gone. So we're still in this apartment. So in that fall, we found a house and we moved to Dundee, Michigan. And that was an 11-acre farm, and we rented out 7 acres to a farmer that rotated it between soybeans and corn. And Sage loved the open space. I did too. Okay. However, after a month there, I started missing, seeing him and wondering where he was. And sometimes he'd be gone for a few days, and sometimes he'd be gone for a week. And I thought he had gone back to Ann Arbor to that family that had taken care of him. And so one morning around 6 a.m., I'm in my home office and I'm looking out the window at my neighbor across the field. And she's letting out animals, and a bunch of cats and a bunch of dogs came out of her house. And there was Sage coming out with the other menagerie of them. I couldn't believe it. Here I was wondering what it was. So I went over to get Sage. So I go over to her house and she tells me, oh, she's so sorry, but Sage is her favorite animal. He even sleeps in the waterbed with her. I was dumbfounded. And she asked to share the cat. And I said, Sage is my cat. Please do not let him in your house again. I could tell my pleas were falling on deaf ears. She was using the animals as an emotional crutch. Because I was trying to get out of there. She was trying to tell me all the problems that she and her husband had. And that house was swarming with animals. She fed the dogs on the floor. And then the cats had bowls that were on the counters and on the top of the refrigerators, so the dogs couldn't get the cats' food. I guess the cats didn't like the dogs' food, but anyway. So I returned home and I was simmering until Floyd got home from work. At that time, he was working in Trenton, I believe. And when I told him, the scenario, what happened, he looked at me with very soft and loving eyes. He said, Sharon, I'm so sorry you've lost your cat because we just can't compete with the waterbed. And I knew he was right. I just couldn't compete because I wasn't going to sleep with the cat. However, I just wasn't willing to give up. He showed up several days later with a haircut. Okay. So I stormed over to her house and she explained she had taken him to the vet and a groomer. I asked her not to take my cat to the vet, and she again asked to share Sage, and I refused. And then the last nail in the coffin. One evening, Floyd and I were coming home. It was after dark, and Sage just happened to be sitting at our side door, okay, on the little walkway that was there. And he was all perched up, with his head, looking so kind of proud or whatever. And he had a kind of a haughty attitude. And I bent over to rub him, and and his attitude was, I just came over to show you how I am being treated. And doesn't my coat look beautiful? Please don't mess me up. And I thought, that isn't that pompous after all I did to him when he was a kid. I took him in off the road when he had no home and fed him and when he didn't have any food. You know, I'm getting into this, okay? But my love for the cat softened my heart, and I opened the door wide and asked him to come in. Do you know that cat would not come in? At that point, I knew all was lost. I did. I fumed for weeks, and there was anguish in my heart, not so much for losing Sage, but the fact that she had lured him away, and there wasn't nothing, not a single thing that I could do. Floyd, during this time, had just cut his emotional losses, and he had moved on. Okay. But the anger nearly consumed me. I had said to myself, I forgave my neighbor, but I still had anger. I finally listened to the Holy Spirit talking to me. I had to do more than say I forgave her. I had to give her Sage. Okay. I called her and I gave her Sage as a gift. I immediately felt a great sense of relief. Romans 8:35 through 39 starts off saying, who shall separate us from the love of the Messiah? Shall pressure or distress or persecution or, whatever. And the verses end with, for I am persuaded that neither death nor life nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Messiah Yeshua, our Master. I learned that those verses aren't just for talking about being attacked by physical and spiritual enemies, but refer to the things that we hold dear, like Sage, that stand in the way of releasing anger, pain, forgiving, or obeying his commandments. I learned a great lesson in forgiveness. That is, when the other person is at fault, they do nothing to repair the breach. Yeah, I understand that forgiveness is between me and Jehovah, not me and the other person. It is a command to forgive, and it's not based on the condition that the other person does something to help me forgive them. I am commanded to forgive. Matthew 6:14 and 15 says, if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. I'm thinking that the principle behind this story that all of us can relate to, because when you live this life and live in this world and live with people, because we're fallen people and all of us have faults and all of us make mistakes, that we're going to um, at some point need to forgive someone, and they may not think that they need to ask for forgiveness. And we still have to release the pain and the anger and whatever that's in us and give that to Father and to let it go. So I hope that this helps. And shalom, shalom. And please like and share and subscribe if you haven't. Shalom.